Tonight, as the world grows quiet and the voices around you fade into silence, something within you becomes louder. It is the place where the heart keeps what it cannot express, where the soul hides what it does not know how to speak. There are wounds that remain invisible to everyone else, yet they ache with a depth that only God perceives. When the day ends and distractions fall away, these hidden sufferings rise, pressing against the heart, with a weight that seems almost unbearable. And it is precisely in this hour, when the night reveals what you tried to endure alone, that heaven chooses to draw near. You did not arrive here by chance. If you are listening now, it is because something within you is exhausted from carrying pain in silence. It is because the Father saw what no one else saw. He saw the nights when your mind would not rest, the moments when your chest tightened under the weight of unspoken grief, the times when you held back tears because you no longer wanted to burden anyone. He saw the hidden fractures of your soul, the memories that pierced like thorns, the disappointments that shaped your silence. And tonight, moved by compassion, he sends Saint Michael not as a warrior entering battle, but as a heavenly guardian descending to heal what has been hurting you for far too long. There are sufferings that shape themselves into a quiet ache, so persistent that the heart starts believing there is no escape from them. The world does not see these wounds, and often you cannot name them. Yet heaven recognizes everyone. The silent anguish, the inner heaviness, the loneliness that emerges without warning, the fears you never voiced, the sorrow that returns when the night deepens, none of these have been hidden from God. And when God sees suffering that has remained too long in darkness, he acts. His answer tonight is not an idea, not a distant promise, but the presence of Saint Michael, the Archangel who stands closest to his throne, sent to touch the places where your soul still bleeds. Tonight is not a night of ordinary prayer. Tonight is an encounter, a moment in which the veil between your wounded heart and the healing light of heaven becomes thin. As you listen, you will feel this closeness. It may reach you as warmth, as clarity, as an unexpected calm, or as the slow dissolving of a burden you have carried for years. However it comes, it is God. It is his response to the suffering you never had the strength to speak. And Saint Michael descends now, not with the sword raised for battle, but with the light that restores, the truth that frees and the peace that begins where pain once reigned. Your healing begins tonight. The wounds that hide in silence and the soul that can no longer carry them. There are wounds that speak loudly, and there are wounds that bury themselves so deeply within the soul that they no longer make a sound. These are the wounds that exhaust the heart, the wounds that shape thoughts, decisions, fears, and even the way a person breathes. They hide beneath ordinary words, behind daily responsibilities, below practiced smiles. They form a quiet ache that becomes familiar, almost normal, until the soul reaches the point where it cannot carry the weight anymore. Silent suffering may not leave visible marks, yet it weakens the interior with surprising force. And tonight, heaven turns its attention precisely to these hidden fractures. Silent suffering begins when the heart experiences something it does not know how to process. It may come from a disappointment that cut deeper than expected, a loss you were never ready for, a betrayal that still echoes, or a fear that grew in the shadows of past pain. It may come from loneliness that has lingered too long, from exhaustion that has worn down your faith, or from guilt that whispers even when you try to pray. These experiences accumulate layer after layer until the heart begins to sink under a weight no one else perceives. The world continues its pace, but the soul slows down, burdened by emotions that have never been released. There is also the suffering that forms when you carry burdens that were never meant to be carried alone. Expectations placed on your shoulders, responsibilities that drain you, moments when you had to be strong despite feeling broken. You hold everything in, hoping the storm will pass, yet the storm settles inside. It becomes the quiet heaviness that meets you at night, when there is nothing left to distract you from what you feel. These wounds do not scream, they whisper. They settle in the silence between breaths, and it is often in the silence that the soul cries the loudest. But silent pain is not only emotional, it is spiritual. Whenever the heart keeps wounds hidden, darkness tries to build a home there. Lies begin to grow in the shadows, that you are alone, that nothing will change, that God is distant, that your suffering is too small for heaven to notice or too great to be healed. These lies do not come from God. They come from the one who thrives in silence filled with sorrow. That is why silent wounds are dangerous. They weaken the soul not only through sadness, but through spiritual isolation. They make the heart forget the truth it once knew, that God sees, God hears, and God delivers. This is why tonight is so important. Because the soul that suffers silently eventually reaches a moment when it cannot carry itself any longer. And that moment is not failure, it is invitation. It is the threshold where heaven intervenes. When the heart reaches its breaking point, God sends help. He does not wait for your strength to return. He does not wait for you to find perfect words. He does not wait for you to understand your pain. He acts because he sees what you have been trying to survive alone. Tonight, he sends Saint Michael to address the wounds no one else knows about. The archangel who once stood against the ancient dragon now stands before the quiet ache in your soul. He sees what is hidden. He recognizes the weight pressing against your heart. His mission is not merely to defend you, but to enter the silence where your suffering hides and bring light that darkness cannot resist. Silent wounds lose their power in the presence of divine light. As you continue listening, allow yourself to acknowledge the suffering you have pushed aside for too long. You do not need to name it. You do not need to explain it. You only need to allow the truth to surface. You are tired, and heaven has come to meet you in that tiredness. Saint Michael is here to begin healing wounds you have carried alone for far too long. The tears heaven saw, even when no one else did. There are tears that never reach the surface, tears that stay hidden behind the eyes because the heart no longer finds the strength to let them fall. These are the tears that gather in silence, held back by the fear of being misunderstood, by the weight of responsibilities, by the belief that no one would truly understand what you are feeling. They are the tears you swallow to stay strong, the tears you hide because you learn to endure more than any person should ever endure alone. Yet even when you held them inside, heaven saw every one of them. God is not unfamiliar with the sorrow that presses itself into silence. He sees beyond composure, beyond strength, beyond the image you present to the world. He sees the truth of your interior, and he has watched the slow accumulation of sadness that you never felt free to express. Nothing you have felt, not even for a second, has escaped his gaze. When you lay awake at night and your mind revisited memories that still hurt, he was there. When your chest tightened with emotions you could not name, he knew. When you whispered a prayer that felt too small to matter, he heard it as clearly as the great prayers of saints. People may miss the signs of your suffering. Even those who love you may not fully understand the weight you carry inside. But heaven never overlooks what you feel. There is a passage in the book of Psalms that says, God collects every tear in his bottle. This is not poetic exaggeration. It is a revelation of his tenderness. It means that no grief is wasted, no pain forgotten, no suffering ignored. God remembers your tears because they speak the truth of your soul. They show where healing is needed. They show where light must enter. They show where his presence must descend. And tonight, because God saw the tears no one else did, he sends Saint Michael to bring healing where you have long needed it. The world knows Saint Michael as the warrior who cast down the ancient serpent, but heaven also knows him as the guardian of wounded hearts. He is sent tonight not only to fight darkness, but to comfort sorrow. His presence is the proof that God has not turned away from your suffering, but has bent toward it with urgency and care. You may believe your suffering was invisible, but heaven has watched every silent breaking of your heart. You may think your tears were insignificant, but heaven has counted each one. You may feel forgotten, but tonight proves the opposite. God has remembered you. God has heard you. God has moved heaven for you. And Saint Michael now stands beside you because your unspoken pain reached the throne of the Father. Tonight, what was hidden will be touched. What was ignored will be healed. What was carried alone will be carried no longer. Saint Michael, the guardian who heals by light, not by force. There is a moment in every wounded soul when the heart, exhausted from carrying what it cannot understand, needs more than comfort. It needs truth. Not the harsh truth of the world, which judges and wounds even more deeply, but the healing truth of heaven, the truth that exposes darkness without shaming the one who suffered, the truth that reveals wounds without reopening them, the truth that frees without crushing. And it is this truth that Saint Michael brings. His mission has never been only to fight battles in the heavens, but to restore what darkness tried to distort in the depths of the human spirit. He heals not by force, but by light. We often imagine healing as something soft, something gentle, something warm, and indeed, divine healing is filled with gentleness. But there is another dimension of healing, one that only Saint Michael embodies with such purity, the healing that comes from illumination. The enemy works in whispers, shadows, and confusion. He thrives where the mind feels lost, where memories feel poisoned, where emotions twist themselves into lies. Saint Michael steps into these places not with weapons made of human strength, but with the brilliance of God's truth. The sword he carries is the sword of revelation. The shield he holds is the shield of clarity. The armor he wears is woven with the radiance of God's justice. And when he approaches a wounded soul, he does not approach as a warrior seeking to conquer, but as a guardian seeking to restore. His light does not intimidate the hurting, it rescues them. Because truth, when it comes from God, does not crush, it liberates. Think of the silent sufferings that wounded your soul. How many of them grew because of lies? Lies that told you you were alone. Lies that told you nothing would ever change. Lies that told you you were unworthy of love. Lies that whispered your pain was invisible to heaven. Lies born from past wounds, from human failures, from the enemy's attempts to plant despair where hope once lived. These lies do not break by human effort. They only break when divine light shines upon them. And it is Saint Michael who brings that light with precision, purpose, and tenderness that often goes unnoticed. His healing begins with presence. Before he swings his sword or scatters darkness, he stands near. His presence is stability. A wounded soul often trembles internally, unsure of what remains strong and what has already collapsed. Saint Michael becomes the stillness around the trembling. He becomes the strength around the fragility. He becomes the divine reassurance that the pain you feel is not greater than the God who guards you. His presence alone begins to shift the interior atmosphere of the heart, preparing it for deeper healing. Then the light begins its work. It enters quietly, almost like dawn rising after a long night. A wounded soul may not perceive it immediately, but something begins to soften, something begins to open, something begins to breathe. The light does not accuse the heart for being wounded. It reveals the truth that the wound is not the end. It reveals the truth that suffering is not identity. It reveals the truth that the soul was created for peace, not for torment. And when this truth begins to rise inside the wounded places, the enemy loses the grip he once had over your inner world. This is where the sword of Saint Michael becomes visible. not as destruction, but as separation. A sword divides. It cuts between what is from God and what is not. It exposes lies for what they are. It slices through illusions that kept you trapped. It separates your true self, the one God created, loved, and redeemed, from the pain that tried to define you. The sword of Saint Michael does not wound, it removes. It takes away spiritual debris accumulated through years of silent suffering. It frees the soul from chains it never consented to wear. And as he cuts away these falsehoods, his light fills the spaces that once held darkness. This is the moment when healing truly begins to deepen, because healing is not merely the absence of pain, it is the restoration of identity. It is the restoration of peace where fear lived. It is the restoration of clarity where confusion ruled. It is the restoration of innocence where shame tried to hide. Healing is God giving the heart back to itself. Saint Michael does this without force. He does not impose. He does not overwhelm. He does not violate the delicate interior of the soul. His healing is guided by reverence. He respects the sacredness of your heart. He knows where it has been hurt. He knows how deeply it has been pierced. He knows how long it has carried silent suffering. And so he approaches with a strength that does not crush, but protects, with a light that does not blind, but reveals, with a truth that does not condemn, but restores. This is why God sends him to you tonight, because there are parts of your heart that have been twisted by pain, parts you do not even know how to access, parts where darkness built a home without permission. Saint Michael enters these places because you cannot heal them alone. His mission is not only cosmic, it is personal. Tonight his battle is not fought against dragons in the heavens, but against the shadows in your soul. He defends you to heal you. He heals you to free you. And he frees you to return you to the peace God intended for you from the beginning. This is the guardian who now stands beside your silent suffering. This is the healer who restores by light. This is the archangel who enters not with violence, but with truth. And as his light begins to touch your wounds, what once felt unbearable begins to loosen its grip. What once felt endless begins to fade. What once defined you begins to fall away. Tonight, Saint Michael begins the healing that only heaven can complete. The sacred moment when the heart opens and the pain begins to break. There comes a moment in every journey of healing when the heart, after resisting for so long, finally stops fighting. It is not a moment of defeat, but a moment of surrender. The holy surrender that happens when a soul realizes it does not need to carry its pain alone anymore. This opening of the heart is not dramatic. It does not come with thunder or sudden revelation. It begins quietly, like a soft shift inside, a loosening of something that had been tight for years. It is the sacred moment when the walls you built to survive begin to lower, just enough for heaven to enter. Many people fear this moment because they believe their pain is too deep, too complex, or too old to be touched. They fear that if they open even slightly, the suffering will overwhelm them once again. But this fear only shows how long the soul has been carrying wounds without divine help. When God draws near, when Saint Michael stands at your side, the opening of the heart is not a threat, it is liberation. It is the moment when grace begins to breathe inside wounds that have been suffocating for too long. This sacred opening often begins with an interior recognition. I am hurting, and I cannot continue like this. These words, spoken or unspoken, have spiritual power. They are the doorway through which God enters. They are the permission heaven waits for, because God never forces his way into a wounded heart. He knocks, he waits, he whispers. And when the heart finally opens, even slightly, his mercy floods in with a gentleness that disarms fear. Saint Michael plays a crucial role in this unfolding. While the Spirit of God inspires the heart to open, Saint Michael protects the opening. He stands guard around the vulnerability of the soul so that darkness cannot exploit it. He ensures that the moment of surrender becomes a moment of healing, not of renewed attack. His presence creates a safe space within your interior, a spiritual sanctuary where the heart can finally rest long enough for the pain to rise without destroying you. And when the pain rises, it rises differently than before. For years it may have risen as anxiety, sadness, confusion, or a heaviness you could not describe. But now, under the protection of Saint Michael, it rises as truth, not chaos. It is no longer a storm that threatens to drown you, but a tide that washes away what the soul can finally release. This rising is not a return of suffering, it is the beginning of its end. Tears may come, sometimes quietly, sometimes unexpectedly, sometimes without knowing exactly why. These tears are not signs of weakness, but signs that the heart has finally found a place where it is safe enough to feel. Healing cannot begin while the soul is numb. The tears that appear in this sacred moment are not tears of despair, but tears of release, tears that carry burdens outward so that grace can enter inward. As the heart opens, something else happens. Memories surface, not to torment, but to be touched. The memories that once haunted you rise because the divine light wants to heal them. Saint Michael does not allow old pain to return for the sake of suffering. He allows it only so it can be transformed. You may feel the sting of something you tried to forget, but in the light of God, that sting becomes the place where the wound is finally cleaned. This is holy vulnerability, the moment when God reaches the places you have kept hidden even from yourself. The moment when the heart, long shielded by self-protection, allows divine tenderness to enter. And as painful as the opening may seem, it is always accompanied by a deeper sensation. Peace beginning to push through the cracks. It may come as warmth in the chest, a loosening of the breath, a quiet clarity, a sense that something heavy inside is lifting. These sensations are not imagined. They are signs that the interior is being rearranged by heaven. The weight you carried for years begins to lose its authority. The sadness that sat on your shoulders begins to dissolve. The quiet suffering that shaped your thoughts begins to break apart under the pressure of divine love. In this moment, Saint Michael moves closer. His light surrounds the wounded places with a purity that darkness cannot withstand. It is as though he places one hand upon your heart, not physically, but spiritually, steadying it as God begins to heal what has been broken. His other hand holds his sword downward, not as a weapon of attack, but as a barrier that blocks everything that once harmed you from returning. You are held, guarded, and seen. The sacred opening of the heart is the moment when heaven and human weakness meet without conflict. It is when God touches the wound without judgment, and when the soul allows itself to be loved in places it once believed were unlovable. It is the moment when suffering is no longer carried alone, and when the burden begins to crack under the weight of divine compassion. And as this happens, something profound awakens inside you. Hope. Not the fragile hope you once clung to, but a deeper, quieter hope that rises naturally when pain begins to leave. Hope that you are not beyond healing. Hope that God has not forgotten you. Hope that Saint Michael has been sent for you personally. Hope that your life can look different from what suffering tried to convince you it must be. This moment, this sacred opening, is the beginning of transformation. What breaks tonight is not you. What breaks is the suffering that tried to define you. What opens tonight is not an old wound. What opens is the door through which healing enters. Tonight, the pain that hurt your soul begins to loosen, begins to unravel, begins to release. Because the heart that opens to heaven never remains wounded the same way again. The night prayer that hands every wound to heaven. There comes a moment in every spiritual healing when the soul must make a choice. It has opened. It has felt the stirring of grace. It has allowed the hidden pain to rise into the presence of God. But healing only becomes complete when the heart stops holding its wounds and places them entirely into the hands of the one who can transform them. This is the purpose of the night prayer, not to recite words for comfort, but to surrender the suffering that has shaped your interior for far too long. Tonight, heaven invites you to this sacred exchange, your wounds for God's peace, your sorrow for God's consolation, your heaviness for God's rest. Prayer is not a task, it is a transfer. Every sigh becomes a handing over, every word becomes a release, every silent longing becomes a bridge between your pain and God's mercy. Many people imagine prayer as something they must perform, something that demands perfection or eloquence. But the most powerful prayers are often the simplest because they rise from the deepest places of the soul. The prayer that Saint Michael receives tonight is not one of many words. It is one of truth. The truth that says, "I cannot carry this anymore," and the truth that trusts God enough to let Him carry it instead. Imagine the heart as someone holding fragments of broken glass, tightly, desperately, for so long that the sharp edges have sunk into the skin. Prayer is the moment when the hands finally open, and as they open, the pain rises, but only so the wounds can be healed. God does not ask you to pretend nothing happened. He asks you to entrust the broken places to Him. Saint Michael, as the guardian of God's people, receives what you release and brings it before the throne with reverence. Tonight's prayer begins with honesty. Healing cannot touch what the heart refuses to reveal. So begin by allowing yourself to speak the truth inwardly, even if your lips remain closed. Say within your soul, "Lord, this is my pain, this is my burden, this is what has hurt me." You do not need to explain every detail, heaven already knows. The act of naming your suffering before God is not for His understanding, but for your liberation. There is no fear in exposing your wounds to the one who created your heart. In this moment, allow yourself to imagine Saint Michael standing close to you, not above you, not distant, but beside you. He is not here to judge your weakness, but to protect your surrender. He is the witness of your offering. His presence brings security to the soul that is afraid to let go. He holds the spiritual space around you so nothing interferes with the exchange happening between your heart and the heart of God. He guards your vulnerability as something sacred. Now, as the prayer deepens, bring your wounds into the light. You may feel sorrow rise or memories reappear or a heaviness surface. Do not fear these movements. They are not signs that darkness is returning. They are signs that the wounds are coming forward to be healed. When a physician treats a wound, the surface must be touched. When God heals a wound, the interior must be revealed. You are not reliving the pain, you are releasing it. At this moment, whisper within yourself, "Saint Michael, take from me what I cannot carry." This is not a command, it is a plea. It is the opening of the soul to divine intervention. Saint Michael does not take from you what you hold tightly, but he receives instantly what you surrender freely. He lifts your burden not by his own authority, but by the authority of God. He brings your suffering to the presence of the Father, where nothing remains untransformed. As you entrust these wounds, something begins to shift. It may feel like a softening of the chest, a deep breath that finally reaches the bottom of your lungs, a warmth settling over your heart, or a quiet sense that something invisible has just been lifted. None of this is imagined. It is the grace of surrender. Pain that has been carried alone grows heavy. Pain that is placed into God's hands becomes light. This is spiritual law. This is divine truth. Continue the prayer by offering your interior. Lord, I give you what I do not understand. I give you what I cannot fix. I give you what hurts my soul. These words are not weakness, they are strength, because true strength is knowing that the Creator can do what the creature cannot. The surrender of suffering is not resignation, it is faith at its highest. It is the trust that says, God, you are greater than this wound. In this surrender, Saint Michael acts with renewed power. His light intensifies around you. His sword holds back every influence of darkness that once fed off your pain. He seals the area of your heart you have just offered, preventing the suffering from returning in the same way. He stands as an intercessor, ensuring that what you give to God remains in God's hands. Then in the silence after your prayer, listen with your soul. There is a peace that begins to descend, not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. It settles like dew on a weary earth. It does not remove your memories, but it removes their sting. It does not erase your story, but it redeems it. This peace is the proof that heaven has received what you released. The night prayer is not a moment you pass through, it is a threshold. After you cross it, you are not the same, because the heart that surrenders its wounds to God becomes a heart that is ready to be healed, rebuilt, and strengthened. And tonight, in this holy hour, you have placed your suffering into hands that will never drop it. The healing that rises through the heart, like dawn breaking through darkness. There is a moment after surrender when heaven begins to move in ways the soul cannot fully explain, but can unmistakably feel. It is the moment when healing does not descend suddenly, like a storm, but rises slowly, like dawn. Darkness does not disappear all at once. It retreats in layers, step by step, breath by breath, as the light increases. This is how God heals the wounded heart, not by forcing transformation in a single instant, but by awakening life where pain once governed every thought. Tonight, this dawn begins within you, guided by the presence of Saint Michael and sustained by the breath of God Himself. When healing begins, the soul does not always recognize it. It expects fireworks or dramatic sensations, but the movements of grace are quieter, deeper, and far more powerful. They begin with the interior softening you may already feel, a feeling that something inside is loosening, a sensation that your breath is reaching places it could not reach before, a clarity beginning to form behind thoughts that were clouded by pain. These are signs that divine light has started to take root within you. Saint Michael plays a crucial role at this stage. His mission is not only to free you from spiritual oppression, but also to guard the healing work God begins. Where light grows, darkness tries to return. But tonight, the Archangel stands as a sentinel, a shield against every attempt of the enemy to reattach sorrow where God is lifting it. His presence forms a barrier around your heart, allowing healing to rise unhindered, uncontested, unshadowed. Healing rises like dawn because God respects the structure of your soul. He knows how long you carried the suffering. He knows the layers of your wounds. He knows the fragility within you that must be handled delicately. And so He allows His grace to unfold patiently, steadily, gently, in ways that your heart can sustain. You may feel warmth spreading across your interior. You may feel weight leaving your chest. You may feel tears forming not from pain but from relief. These are not emotional coincidences. They are signs of the Holy Spirit moving. Think of the memories that once hurt. Under God's healing light, they begin to lose their sting. Not because your past has changed, but because its power over your identity is melting away. You are no longer defined by what wounded you. You are being redefined by the one who heals you. Memories that once triggered pain now begin to rest. Thoughts that once spiraled into darkness now find a place to settle. The patterns of suffering that repeated themselves in your mind begin to break. This is not imagination. This is spiritual restoration. Healing also brings a new kind of clarity. Pain clouds perception. It distorts the way you see God, the way you see yourself, the way you see life. But as healing rises, you begin to see through the fog that once surrounded your soul. You begin to understand that many of your fears were born from wounds, not truth. You begin to recognize that much of your hopelessness came from exhaustion, not destiny. You begin to sense that God was never as far from you as the suffering made you believe. This clarity is one of the greatest gifts of grace, the ability to see reality through light instead of sorrow. In this rising dawn, peace becomes possible again. Not the fragile, temporary peace that depends on circumstances, but the deep, anchored peace that comes from knowing God is working inside you. You may feel this peace settling in small waves, at first in your breathing, then in your mind, then in your heart, then in your entire being. It is the kind of peace Jesus promised when he said in the Gospel of John chapter 14 verse 27, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you." This peace is not lifeless or quiet in a shallow sense. It is alive, steady, powerful and protective. It is the peace that remains even when suffering tries to speak again, because the heart knows it is no longer alone. Saint Michael's presence intensifies this peace. His light surrounds you, like the first rays of dawn warming the coldness of night. He guards the new life rising within you. He stands at the threshold of your heart, ensuring nothing from your past chains returns to steal what God is rebuilding. His guardianship does not end when the suffering leaves. It continues as long as you desire God's healing. And something else happens in this dawn. Hope awakens. Not a fleeting hope, not a fragile hope, but a hope grounded in the experience of God touching your wounds. Hope that life can change. Hope that your heart can be whole again. Hope that you are not doomed to repeat the same cycles of pain. Hope that there is more ahead than what suffering predicted. This hope rises quietly but steadily, like the first light of morning spreading across a dark horizon. The healing rising within you is the work of God, but it is also the work of your willingness to remain open. The more you trust, the more light enters. The more you release, the more peace settles. The more you allow Saint Michael to guard you, the more freedom becomes permanent. Healing is not an instant event, it is a divine process. And tonight, that process has begun in you. As dawn continues to rise, you will notice that your heart feels different. Not fully healed yet, but undeniably changing. Something within you feels lighter, steadier, safer. The suffering that once felt overwhelming now feels weaker. Its voice is fading. Its grip is loosening. This is what happens when divine light becomes stronger than the shadows that once lived inside you. Tonight, healing rises in you like dawn, and dawn never reverses. Once the light begins, it must complete its journey, and so will your healing. The final call. Tonight begins your new life. Do not return to what once broke you. There is a moment in every encounter with heaven when the soul must understand that what happened tonight was not temporary. Healing is not a fleeting sensation, nor is divine intervention a brief interruption in suffering. What God began within you tonight is the beginning of a new way of living, a new way of carrying yourself, a new way of seeing life and your own worth. This final call is not meant to pressure you, it is meant to awaken you. Because once heaven touches your wounds, nothing remains the same unless you choose to walk back into the shadows that once imprisoned you. Tonight, the door of healing opened. Now God calls you to step through it. Do not underestimate what has taken place in your heart. The enemy will try to convince you that this moment was just emotion, that the peace you felt was temporary, that the healing rising in your soul will fade as soon as life becomes difficult again. These lies often come quickly after grace touches a wounded heart. But remember this truth: darkness always fights hardest right after it has been defeated. The presence of resistance does not mean your healing is fragile. It means your healing is real. And the enemy fears what you will become once you embrace it. This is why the final call matters. God is inviting you to protect what He restored tonight. Saint Michael is urging you to remain close to the light that entered your soul, and your own heart, perhaps for the first time in a long while, is hoping you will not return to the patterns, thoughts, and wounds that once defined you. Freedom has been given. Now it must be lived. To live this new life, the first step is remembering the truth of tonight. Whenever fear tries to rise again, anchor yourself in this moment. Whenever sorrow tries to whisper that nothing has changed, recall the peace that settled inside you. Whenever the memories of your suffering attempt to pull you backward, remind your heart that they no longer have authority over you. Healing is not the absence of struggle. It is the presence of God within the struggle. And tonight God established His presence in the very places where suffering once thrived. Saint Michael will continue to guard you. His mission tonight does not end with the closing words of this prayer. You are now under His protection in a special and personal way. The Archangel who defended heaven itself now defends the healing God began in your soul. He will stand between you and the shadows of your past. He will warn your spirit when something threatens your peace. He will strengthen you when weakness tries to return. He will remind you that your suffering does not define you, and that you were created for light far greater than any darkness you have endured. To walk forward, you must also allow God to continue what He started. Healing is not a single event, even though tonight marks the moment it began. Continue to invite His presence into your heart. Speak to Him when you feel pressure rising again. Allow the Holy Spirit to breathe peace into your thoughts each night. As Jesus said in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 11 verse 28, "Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest." Rest is not found in escaping life, but in drawing near to the one who gives meaning to life. There will be days when you feel strong and days when you feel fragile. This is part of being human. But fragility is no longer a threat when God is present. The suffering that once broke you no longer controls your future. Even if remnants of pain try to rise, they cannot dominate a heart that has been touched by divine healing. And when those old echoes try to speak again, call upon Saint Michael. His name alone carries the victory of God's truth over every lie that once wounded you. The final call of tonight is also a call to identity. You are no longer the person who arrived with silent suffering pressing upon your soul. You are the person who was seen by God, defended by Saint Michael, and touched by healing grace. You carry the mark of heaven upon your heart. This is not imagination. It is the reality of grace. Healing changes a person's spiritual identity. You are no longer defined by pain, but by God's mercy. No longer shaped by wounds, but by restoration. No longer guided by fear, but by hope. This new life will unfold one step at a time. You do not need to know the whole path. You only need to take the next right step, staying close to God, invoking Saint Michael, breathing the peace you received tonight, protecting your heart from what once damaged it, trusting that the one who began a good work in you will bring it to completion. Every time you remember the weight you once carried, let it remind you that you are no longer carrying it. Every time you remember the silence of your suffering, let it remind you that heaven broke that silence. Every time you feel a trace of sorrow, let it point you back to the moment when God began to heal you. The past will not reclaim you. The pain will not define you. The suffering will not return with the same power. Tonight, heaven intervened. Tonight, Saint Michael fought for you. Tonight, God reached into the depths of your heart and began a healing that cannot be undone unless you willingly walk back into the darkness that once hurt you. And you will not, because now you know what it feels like to be touched by divine mercy. Now you know what it means for healing to rise within you. Now you know that God has never abandoned you. Tonight marks the beginning of your new life. Walk forward with the certainty that heaven walks with you.